It's not too often we do a direct requests, but we're doing one today. This podcast is in tribute to a good supporter of my New Brunswick Independent Authors Association, Mitch Chuvalo. And Mitch can tell you his father, George, pretty well fought every comer, up and coming contender in Canada, but his last legacy as Canadian champion happened in the late 1970s, where he won the vacant Canadian heavyweight title in a very interesting match against one Bob Feldstein at the North York Centennial Centre on March 7th, 1977. Now, the 12 rounder was an interesting tilt. It was promoted heavily into the late winter of 77, with George winning in the ninth round via KO. Now, almost 7, 8 months later, his first defense of the title was against Earl McLeay, where it was a first round knockout on December 8, 1977. But the most interesting fight in that era was, of course, George's last. He fought the other George Jerome, which pushed his record to 73-18-2. It was a third round TKO 2 weeks before Christmas on December 11th, 1978, at the St. Lawrence Market in Toronto. Now, the situation with George towards the tail end of his career, he pretty well was fighting some what he called non-contenders. The last major fight he had, obviously, was in 1972, his second bout against Ali, where he lost a unanimous decision over 12 rounds. And this was for the NABF heavyweight crown. So Ali basically won the title against George. Not too many people know that. Now, his next fight, of course, was in August of 1972, where he retained the Canadian heavyweight title against one Tommy Burns. Now, he fought 3 more times before coming out of retirement. September 5th, 1972, he won in the second round over Charlie Boston in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. And in back-to-back fights at the Twin Reeks in Chicotagua, New York, he won TKO 3 against Tony Ventura on September 25th, 73, and only, I think, 5 weeks later against Mike Boswell. So, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, a very interesting tail end to George's career, because towards the last months of his career, he also had a very interesting contest against Cleveland Williams, the former heavyweight contender, who had fought Ali for the crown and was destroyed in just a few rounds. He won the unanimous decision on November 1771 at the Astrodome in the U.S. in Houston. So he was a reigning Canadian title holder for a number of years, but was still fighting for North American belts and top 10 recognition. Now, according to published sources, ladies and gentlemen, the contests that really stand out, and I want to recap them because even though it was the tail end of his career where George, again, was still a Canadian title holder, some other fights really stood out for a lot of people. Of course, he fought Ali twice. Ali called him the toughest guy he ever fought, and no washerwoman there. Now, Chuvalo also had numerous tough losses against famous fighters, other than his 2 defeats to Ali. In 57, he lost to Bob Baker, who was ranked as high as number 2 in 55. This was his 13th fight and second pro loss. He also lost to Zora Fowley, who was once ranked as the top contender, and of course, the last opponent against Ali before he was suspended because of his refusal to be inducted towards the Vietnam War. Key victories, of course, was a win against Doug Jones, who gave Muhammad Ali a closely contested bout in 63. He was stopped in 1967 by Joe Frazier and in 1970 by George Foreman, although in both cases the referee stopped the fight while Chuvalo was still on his feet. Chuvalo, and this is the legend we still talk about, was never knocked down in his career, and there were only stoppage losses. Of course, the infamous match against Joe Erskine, where it was a DQ for headbutting. He did lose 15 decisions on points during his career. So we look at some of the key fights, and he was a perennial top 10 contender pretty well from the time before before the Canadian flag and after the Canadian flag. Fights that really stand out for me, ladies and gentlemen, of course, is the fight against Floyd Patterson. He lost a rough 12-round decision in February 1965. Ernie Terrell, of course, lost a 15-round decision for the WBA crown. A questionable decision, November 1st, 65. He also lost to Edward Coletti, who was a strong contender over at the Olympia in London. He fought Oscar Bonavina, lost a majority decision. And of course, Willie Bezmenov, back-to-back knockouts in 67, lost to Joe Frazier. Again, a loss to Buster Mathis, a very heavy contender, no pun intended. Lost unanimous decision February 3rd, 69. And of course, for a lot of people, the knockout of Jerry Quarry, December 12th, 69, at MSG, probably ranks as one of the top moments in Canadian boxing history, up there with Yvon Durrell knocking Archie Moore down 3 times. Now, he also fought Jimmy Ellis, who was world champion at one point, for a loss to Frazier. A tough 10-round decision at Maple Leaf Gardens, May 10, 71. And this was where Ellis was trying to get back in the rankings. But ladies and gentlemen, like I said, a very interesting career. And to be Canadian champion for that long in different formats, he won, if I'm not mistaken, he won the Canadian title, he won the vacant Canadian title, in his 18 bout against James J. Parker, who was American. I still don't understand why. Who won? He lost the title to Bob Cleroux, August 17, 1960, but won it back a few months later. Now, he lost the Canadian title back to Cleroux at the Laurier Stadium August 18, 61. And then he won the vacant title against Hugh Mercier on March 18, 64. Now, as the years went on, again, he wasn't defending the Canadian title, but when he defeated Jean-Claude Roy, June 15, 68, again, the title was recognized as his yet again. And the retention, of course, against Charlie Chase and his first fight with Tommy Burns. And then again, so that means 5 or 6 official, unofficial Canadian belts. And, of course, the early fight against Yvon Durrell, which was kind of the unofficial cruiserweight championship of Canada, because my old friend Du had moved up. He told me that Durrell was one of the hardest knocks he ever got. So it was pretty freaky, ladies and gentlemen. So again, George Chuvalo's path as Canadian champion took many twists and turns. I think the idea about Chuvalo, he always treasured the Canadian belt, and we treasured him for basically doing that. But that wasn't really promoted much of against Ali the second fight for the North American Championship. That's a belt that Ali never really talked about. So it's sort of like when our good friend Scotty Bulldog Olsen won the USBA belt as a Canadian. So you never know what these federations could think. So this podcast, if you, Mitch, if you're listening, and for those who don't know, George Chuvalo was one of the greatest and proudest Canadians ever was. Every time he entered a ring, he had that Canadian flag pretty well flowing for the crowd. And we listened on radio, we watched on TV, we read about it in Boxing Illustrated and Ring Magazine and Sports Illustrated. He was featured in Sports Illustrated quite often. He was a darling of the New York press, a darling of the West Coast press and the Canadian press. I started covering his entertainment career because he was retired from boxing. I did an early article on his appearances in movies like The Fly and different productions. George was a very good actor, like I said, as well, because you have to be a good actor to be a good boxer to get past all the battles are to get those belts. But Yvon Durrell's maritime belt, I saw it, and he told me, he said, I haven't seen Chuvalo's belt in a while, and he said, I'd like to see what belt it was, because I guess there were 2 or 3 versions of the Canadian belt out there. So maybe Mitch can give a little bit of inside information about the Canadian belt designs. Just like wrestling, you change every once in a while. So Again, 1977-78, big write-ups in Boxing Illustrated Ring Magazine, him being Canadian champion again. And like I said, he retired. He started his career as a champion in the eyes of his followers, and he was a champion, winning certain events early part of his career, and he ended a champion. So that's the story of George Chuvalo's last reign as Canadian heavyweight champion. If you like what we're doing here, we're a sporting podcast. Let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share.